Good morning. Welcome to the Water's Edge. Do you want to stand or stay? I'm seated, so I feel bad asking you to stand. Let's stand. It's New Year's resolution to stand more. I had some technical difficulties this morning, so I'm on the electric guitar, so it's not totally unplugged this morning, but that's okay. I'd rather play Charlotte here anyway. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. All right, sing with me now. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all I know. The old made new, Jesus, when I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, the chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. All right. Thank you. Thanks for singing. You may be seated.
So we survived Christmas.
Yes, barely.
So what was your first Christmas Eve like for you, doing all those services?
Oh, man. Do you want the real answer, or we haven't?
No, do it the answer like you're in front of a bunch of people and there's some watching online too.
It was
Say it was great. It was
awesome.
great listening
It was
to you.
seriously
Say it
great.
was great listening to you 6 times, Craig. I just soaked in every word that
I
you
haven't
spoke
memorized
the
it,
whole
yeah.
time. No,
It was
but
so fun.
let's give it up to Jimmy and the band. They worked awesome and they worked hard. And
Thank you.
he's back on New Year's Day. And see Jeff Sullivan. I saw John Ely. Some of the band members gave so much time. And all the volunteers. We had about 2,500 people here on Christmas Eve, and just a lot of people coming and going. There's people who held babies. There's people who serve cookies. Mike Hodges, I don't know if he is here today, but this floor has never been abused as much as it was on Christmas Eve. And I think he ran the machine over it probably 5-6 times. And we had a funeral here on Thursday, and he had it looking great for that. So everyone who made Christmas Eve possible, thank you so much. So generosity is one of the values that we have here, and generosity makes a difference in people's lives, and we don't practice generosity to support and to fund things. That's the byproduct. We practice generosity to look like Jesus, to be recreated in God's image, because God was generous and Jesus was generous, and at our best, we look like God and we look like Jesus. My oldest son, Benjamin, and his girlfriend were out on a date 2 nights ago, and he had reservations downtown at Upstream, and he came back and he was so excited that somebody had paid for their meal. And I asked him, like, what did that do to you? And he just said, well, it made our night. And we're just so grateful. And that's what generosity does. It could be a random act like that, or it could be like the systematic things that we did. So during our season of giving, we had 4 things that we do: the Thanksgiving dinners, the Christmas shoe boxes, the Project We Care. Our previous record was $82,000 that y'all have given, and y'all gave $110,000 this year during the season of giving, and y'all did a lot of good for a lot of people. Our Christmas offering was just phenomenal. The goal was $25,000. It was 100 beds. The beds are about $250 a pop with the mattress and the bedding. So 100 of them would have been $25,000. Y'all gave $62,000. So the people at the Build-A-Bed place are just ecstatic, and and it's just cool stuff. So now we have about $37,000 extra that we can build a lot more beds with and do a lot more good in Miller Park. So to all of you who gave to our Christmas offering, that was just phenomenal. It was the single biggest special offering that we've ever taken before. When we gave like the $50,000 earlier this year for Nicaragua and all the bathrooms, I didn't think it was going to be, I thought it'd be years before we could even come close to touching that one, and y'all did it, so thank you. You're doing a lot of good for a lot of people. So the second part of this, though, is really cool. I don't want us just to be the church that, gives money and throws money into problem. I want us to get our hands dirty and get out there and fix the problem ourselves as well. So all these beds that we purchased, we're going to build them, and we're going to do that one on January 13th and 14th, so Friday night and a Saturday. And then we're going to deliver them after church on that Sunday, so it'd be 2 weeks from today. So go to our website, weomaha.com. Go to where it says serve, go to Miller Park Bed Build Day or whatever it is. It's easy to find on the website. And serve, so you can serve on the Friday night, the Saturday, building the beds, or if you get a chance to deliver a bed, do it. You actually get to go to the kid's house, and you get to take the bed with you, and you get to put it together. It's easy to put together. You get to put the mattress on there, you get to make the bed, then you get to see the kid get on the bed, and that's going to be a really cool experience for you. So I hope after church 2 weeks from today, that there's so many of us that just head down to Miller Park and get these kids their beds. That's going to be a great gift for all of us, and it'll be a great gift for the kids. All right, so we have some Bible studies coming up. We got 2 of them. One of them is a women's study. It's been going on for a few years. Great study. Every time I come here on Monday, I never get here too early on Monday. I'm always tired from Sunday. So I usually come 9:30 or 10 or so, and it's just so cool to see all the cars over there for the women's Bible study. It's a great chance to get to know people. It's a great chance to learn about the Bible, and it's a great chance to experience Jesus. So I really encourage you to do that. We have great leadership. There's great women that do that. So if you're a woman, Monday mornings, they do it at 9 o'clock here at the church. And guys, we have a new Bible study hosted by Mac McCoy. Mac, can you maybe raise your hand or stand up? We don't want to scare too many people away, so maybe you can just stay seated now. Mac is a great guy. Mac has a local radio talk show. It's a Christian talk show on 660. Once in a while, he lets me come and share some stuff. So Mac loves the Lord. Mac and his new wife Em are new to the church, and we're glad you're here. And he wants to start a Bible study. So men, it'd be great if before you go to work on Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8 o'clock, just love it if you could come and get into God's Word together. So both of us are going to start not this week, but next week. So the women's one starts a week from Monday. The men's one starts a week from Wednesday. You can register for both those online at weomaha.com. Just go to the Bible studies and all the information is there. So next week, we're going to start our first sermon series of the year. So at the end of every service, or pretty near the end of every service, we pray a prayer, the Lord's Prayer. And I was thinking some of the time we pray this, it's just kind of like words that we go through. And I wonder how many of us are actually thinking about what it is we're praying here. So we're going to look at this one prayer for the next 6 or 7 weeks. And the reason we're going to do this is because Jesus said, when you pray, pray like this, Our Father. So next week when I talk, I'm just going to be looking at those 2 words, Our Father. And we're going to look at what Jesus is trying to teach us when he gives us those 2 words. And we're just going to look at it phrase by phrase. Some of this sermon series is going to be about prayer and digging deep into that. But next week is really a message about community. So the first word in the prayer is our. It's not like my Father, something that I do privately. It's our Father. Collectively, something that we get to do together. So I'm really, really excited about this series, and I really hope as this series unfolds, when we pray that prayer at the end of every service, that this just becomes a really meaningful liturgy for us and something that brings us closer together and something that brings us closer to God. So I think that must be it. There's no more screens. So Happy New Year, everyone. And Jimmy, we're going to let you lead us in worship. Do you want us to stand or sit?
Yes, let's stand up, please. I say let's. I'm going to stay seated, but please stand and sing. Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Our chaos back into order, who makes the orphan a son and daughter, the King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night. You tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, because you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I love that song. Thanks for singing it. We have one more, sorry, before you sit down. Thank you. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last, your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you never fail. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. Thanks for singing. You may be seated.
Got heavier this year. That is not how heavy I remember it being. Well, Happy New Year. Good morning. Thanks for joining us at the Water's Edge. My name is Leandra. I'm one of the pastors here at the church. And I think for some of you, I saw a lot of new faces walking in and checking in their kids today. And I know it's January 1st, so maybe for some of you, your New Year's resolution was to start going to church or find a church or find a new church. And if that's you, or if you're watching online, you're trying us out, we're just glad that you're with us, worshiping with us. It's not easy to walk into a new place, and most New Year's resolutions don't work, but January 1st, here you are, you did it, so good job. And we hope to see you on the 8th, too. So I was thinking about New Year's resolutions, and they're kind of infamous for never working out. So I was kind of curious. I know they haven't worked out for me. Has anyone in here actually pulled off a New Year's resolution? You don't have to be shy or allowed to brag. You've pulled one off before. Colleen, what did you do? Are you willing to share? You can make something up if it's you don't want to share. What's that? Oh. Uh-huh. Yeah, so shop local, right? Yeah. So I didn't see a ton of hands, but these New Year's resolutions, they're really hard to pull off. Like most of us still make one every year, but then a few weeks, like I am notorious for always starting these, like I spend like 2 weeks making this big plan of here's what I'm gonna do. And then it doesn't even last the 2 weeks that I spent planning it. I've started any type of workout fitness plan you've heard of. I've done it for at least a week. I always I go and I'm like, I'm gonna get kale and I'm gonna make kale breakfast smoothies every morning, and the kale always goes bad. I've never eaten it. I do all these things. I'm like, I'm gonna call a friend once a week. I'm gonna get in touch with all these people, and I make one phone call, and that's it until next year. And so I try to hit the birthdays, but I'm always impressed when someone on January 1st they say I'm gonna do something and they stick with it, and there's real change. It's just really impressive to me because it's never been me. So I only saw 2 hands for actually accomplishing one, but you don't have to share this time. But who has a New Year's resolution this year? Or they've thought of one? A few more hands. Okay, so most of us it looks like have given up on the whole idea. All right. But even though we know that they don't tend to work out, there's something about seeing January 1 on the calendar, something it does in our brain where we're like, I gotta change. Something new has to be done. I'm going to start something new. Even if we don't believe in ourselves, we're still like, I'm going to try. This is the thing I'm going to do. There's something about this time of year. And I think for most of us, maybe we have given up on the idea of New Year's resolutions. But if you're sitting here and you're seeing January 1st on that calendar and you're saying, I want to make a change. There's something in my life. There's something in myself that needs to be different. I want 2023 to go differently than 2022 did for us. I think there's still hope. I think there's still hope that we can change. I think there's still hope that things can be different. I just don't think that hope is in a New Year's resolution. I think we need a different strategy because year after year after year, those never work out. There's a pastor who told me the most read chapter of the Bible is Genesis 1. Because everyone reads it on January 1st, and I'm gonna read through the Bible this year, and that's as far as they get. So on January 1st, we all read Genesis 1, and that's as far as we go. But change is possible. It's got to look a little bit different. But when you read the Bible, God is changing people all the time. The whole Bible is about people changing and things changing, and how God is doing that. And it's full of all these dramatic life change stories. We read the Bible, and we see sinners becoming saints. We see broken relationships get put back together. Selfish people become servants. Hurt people that get healed. We see people that are lost and now they find purpose. Even throughout the book of Acts, we see all these people who didn't even believe in Jesus when we first met him, and now they're preaching about him in front of hundreds of thousands of people. So if you read through the Bible, almost everyone you meet, it's a story of change. So I know that change is possible. I just don't think me writing down work out every day is how it's going to happen. Because it's never worked in the past. And if you're sitting here on January 1st and reflecting back on 2022 and you're thinking to yourself, I just don't like where I am right now. That year didn't go the way that I wanted to, or I didn't become the person that I want to become. I'm not where I want to be yet. I do think that this year can be different. I do think we can change. In 2 Corinthians, Paul, who had one of those dramatic life change stories, he wrote in chapter 5, anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old is gone and a new life has begun. I feel like this verse is like New Year's Day in a Bible verse. This is how we feel when that calendar turns. Okay, the old is gone, the new has begun. Things can be different. I can be different. And when we read the Bible and see all these stories, it happens over and over and over again that when God gets involved in someone's life, they change. That's just what happens. It happens over and over again. I see it here all the time. When you work at a church, you just get to see and hear all these stories of God gets involved in someone's life and they're totally different than they were when you first met them. You know, one of the interesting things that happens in the Bible, in these stories where God totally changes someone, he doesn't just change their habits or their circumstances or what's going on. He actually changes their name. There's all these people in the Bible who God gives a new name, and he's basically saying, this is your new identity. You are going to go by a different name. That's how different you are. You need a new name. So Abram, at the beginning, he becomes Abraham. Jacob, he gets the name Israel. There's Simon, one of the disciples. They start calling him Peter. So when all these people change, God literally gives them a new name. And names back then, they were symbolic of who you were. So they didn't just pick out names for the kids that they thought sounded good. It was about what the name meant. So they would give their kid a name and say, this is what I hope they become. Or when they were born, they would give them a name that described what the baby was like. So one of those people that changed, his name was Jacob. That's the name he was born with. And he was actually a twin. This happens in Genesis 25. So when Jacob was born, he was the second twin. So it says the first one was very red at birth, and he was covered with thick hair like a fur coat. So they named him Esau. Does anyone know what Esau means? It means hairy. Yeah. So he came out and he was hairy, and they named him Harry. That's how it worked. Kind of unfortunate for Esau, but that's, he was covered like a fur coat, so it makes sense. So then the second twin was born, and when he was born, it said his hand was grabbing on to Esau's heel. It's like he was trying to get out first, but he didn't quite get there. He was trying to pull him, and so they named him Jacob, which literally means heel grabber, because he was grabbing the heel. Jacob, did you know that's what your name meant? I don't think that's why your parents named you that, and now we use Jacob differently, but it meant heel grabber. And the interesting part about it is, so he was literally grabbing a heel, but in those ancient times, heel grabber was like a phrase, and what it meant, it was related to, so if someone was like running, if you were running in a race and you were losing, and you reach out and grab someone's heel to trip them up so that you can get ahead, that's what a heel grabber was. They were like a cheater or a trickster or a swindler, always trying to get ahead of other people, but not doing it in an honest way. So again, Jacob, that's not what your name means. We know that you would never grab someone's heel like that, but, he says he definitely would, so the name fits the bill. All right. He's won a lot of races. So ironically, they give Jacob this name, heel grabber, and for the first half of his life, he fits the bill as well. He is a heel grabber. He's always cheating and lying and deceiving people to try and get ahead. He lies and tricks his brother out of his birthright, so that would have been kind of out of his inheritance or his rights that he had as the oldest son. And he lies and tricks his dad and steals that blessing before his dad passes away. And, we see story after story where, like, Jacob, he's a heel grabber. He's a trickster. He's a cheater. His name fit him perfectly, and eventually he leaves home because he's burned so many bridges, and he goes out and he ironically gets involved with another heel grabber named Laban, and Laban kind of tricks him into working for him as a slave, and they make these deals, and then Laban always changes the terms at the last second, and Jacob ends up working there for years and years for free, and he's finally met his match, the heel grabber. Now someone's grabbing his heel. And Jacob, eventually, he gets in this situation where he says, I don't want to live this way anymore. I got to go home. I got to make up with my brother. I got to set things right. I don't want to keep deceiving people and tricking them and taking advantage of them because I've burned every bridge. These people that loved me and cared about me now don't like me, don't want to see me. So he packs up all of his stuff, his family, his kids, everything that he had, and he begins this long walk home. And I'm just picturing that walk home. Like if Jacob knew about New Year's resolutions, he would have had a whole list on this walk home. He's broken. He's full of regret. He's not proud of who he's become. And I think he probably would have had this list of resolutions like be more honest, be a better brother, be more grateful for what I have instead of always scheming for more, be a better husband, be a better father, focus more on my relationship with God, be more faithful. And he's walking home, he's thinking about all these things, and he's feeling how a lot of us feel on January 1st, which is, I need to change. I need to be different. I want my life to go in a different direction, and it starts with me. And then on this walk home, as Jacob's thinking about all these things, it's one of the weirdest scenes in the whole Bible. But at night, Jacob's down by the river, and this man comes and provokes him, and they start wrestling. And then later, the Bible tells us that that man was actually God. So Jacob is there wrestling with God, and while they're wrestling, the man stops and says to him, "What is your name?" So remember back then, he's not just wondering who he is, what's the title, what name do they call you by? He's basically asking them, who are you? What is your name? Because names were supposed to define who we were. So he says, who are you? And Jacob replies, and he says, Jacob. But more than that, he's saying, I'm a heel grabber. I'm a cheater. I'm a trickster. I take advantage of people so I can get ahead. He's telling them, this is who I've been. This is who I am. And, our names don't define us anymore. When I was writing this, I Googled, what does Leandra mean? It means lion girl. Not sure if that defines me well, but that's what it means. I think my parents just picked it because they liked it. But our names don't define us anymore. But I think December 31st, yesterday, tends to be the day where we reflect on the previous year. We reflect on what went well, what didn't, where are we at, why did this happen. And if someone came up to us yesterday on December 31st, 2022, and they asked you this question, what is your name? But they were really asking, who are you? A lot of times we'd feel like Jacob, and we wouldn't be very proud of our answers. Maybe we'd be thinking, I'm fat, I'm unsuccessful, I'm insecure, I'm anxious, I'm lonely, I'm not good enough, I'm broken, I'm boring, I'm tired, I'm a failure, I'm stuck. These are some of the words that we come up with at the end of the year, and that's why when we see January 1st, we say, I need a name change. I need to be different. I want to answer this question differently than I have in the past. I want my life to look differently than it did this last year. So as Jacob's wrestling with God, and God says, who are you? And he says, I'm a heel grabber. And look where it's got me. I'm lost out here. My family doesn't like me. And I was reading it, you can practically hear the shame in his voice when he has to answer that question to this man and admit who he's become. And the man responds and he says, your name will no longer be Jacob. And again, this is more than a name change. He's saying, you will no longer be this person. You do not have to be this same person anymore. You can change. And he changes him. He says, from now on, your name will be Israel, for you have fought with God and men and have won. And that's what Israel means, that you've struggled and that you've overcome. He got a name change, and more than that, he got a new identity in this moment. And this name change was the beginning. So the Jacob that we see in the first half of the story is totally different than the Jacob in the second half of the story. He does become a better brother and husband and father. His family grows. He grows closer to God. He reconciles with his family. He ends up being this great leader that's used by God, and he got a name change. He got to become a new person. And when I wake up and it's January 1st, I don't just want I'm going to start a new habit and I'm going to do this for 30 minutes a day. I woke up today thinking I want a total name change type of transformation this year. I want it to be totally different, and one little habit change is probably not going to pull it off, and I probably won't even pull off the habit change. So I got to try something else. In our culture, we don't usually change our names that often, not our first names at least. So as I look around here, some of us actually have changed our name, right? The name that we have today is not the same. So Jill, you were not born Jill File, right? You were probably something easier to spell. It's PF File, so it probably gets confusing. Jen McCune, were you born Jen McCune? No, it was something else. Jean, you weren't Jean Clayton, you were something else. I don't know your maiden names. But why did you guys change your name? It's not rhetorical. Because you got married, right? The reason we change our name is because there was a change in a relationship status, basically. And that's the same reason that God changes names. There's been a change in the relationship status. Not with another person, but with God. So when Abram becomes Abraham, it's because he made a covenant with God. There's a change in his relationship status. When Jacob becomes Israel, it's after he wrestles with God. That's a change in relationship status. Later, we see Simon, he gets renamed Peter. And it's right after he realizes that Jesus isn't just human, he's God. That's a change in relationship status. That's why people change. And if you've been married and changed your name or changed your name for another reason, those first few months are so confusing, aren't they? For 26 years, my name was Leandra Martins. And then all of a sudden, Sam and I throw this party, and at the end, my name is Leandra Essler. It was so hard to get used to. I had to think before introducing myself. I still don't really know how to sign my name in cursive. I've done the Leandra big M squiggles for so long, and cursive E's are really hard, but there's this like adjustment period when you change your name. I remember, so Sam's sister is Lauren Essler, and now I am Leandra Essler. And I remember we moved into our house and we started getting mail for the first time, and I like glanced at one and I was like, we got your sister's mail at our house. And Sam looks at me and he goes, that's your name. I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. There's this adjustment period when you change names, and there was this adjustment period for Jacob. It didn't happen instantly. But he had been given a name change, and he was a new person. And I think that's the difference between a New Year's resolution, like how we try and change with a New Year's resolution versus how God changes us. So if we want change this year, I'm not advocating for the typical New Year's resolutions, because as we've seen, they've only worked for 2 people in this room. But God does change people, and it does work. So I want to look at how he does that. So the first thing I realized is New Year's resolutions, they try and change us with rules and willpower to create change, right? We set some guidelines. These are the rules, and if I'm disciplined enough, then I'll change, and things will be different. That's not how God changes people. God changes us through relationships. It's a change in relationship status that changed all those people. And that's how God changes us too. I remember when I first started this whole process, the ordination process and working towards becoming a pastor, and decided I was going to go to seminary. You have to go to all these different groups of people and interview and get them to sign off and recommend you and turn in all this paperwork. And I went home to one of those people that had to sign off, and I remember I met with him and talked, and I was like, yeah, you got to fill out this form and send it in, and one of the hoops we have to jump through. And he actually told me that he would not sign it because he didn't believe that women should be pastors. And I knew that was something that existed. I dealt with that, but I think the reason this one hurt and was more personal is because I knew this person. And he knew me. He watched me grow up. And so then when I learned that, I was just so hurt, but mostly for like the next few months, I was super angry. Like, you ever have that anger where you're not thinking about it and you're just driving, and then for some reason it pops up in your head again and you're like tighten? Like, that was just happening to me all the time. I'm like, oh, I can't believe he said that. And like, I just could not get rid of it. I was like, I can't go on being angry. It's bothering me because I have to think about it all the time, and I just don't want to be feeling anger all the time. It's not comfortable. So I like read a book on how not to be angry and listened to the podcasts and told myself like, Leandra, just don't care about it. Just stop being angry. I just tried to use my willpower to change that, and it didn't work. So for months and months, I just kept being angry. I'm like, I guess I'll just be an angry person. I cannot get rid of this. And eventually, I'm not still angry about it. But the only thing that changed it wasn't the book. It wasn't, self-help thing. It wasn't trying harder. It was a change in my relationship with God that changed me. I had to go to God and be like, why am I so angry about this? Why do I care so much what this guy thinks? It doesn't matter. I'm still here. I still work at a church. Like, he didn't get in the way. Why am I still so angry? And I had to have that change in relationship with God where I'm getting my affirmation from him and not always looking for it in other people. And it wasn't until a change in the relationship with God and through relationship that I changed. And I don't think any of that other stuff was ever going to work. That's how God changes people. He says, stop just trying to do it on your own and just come to me. I'm the one who changes you. I change you through relationship. And I think that's the thing that can change us and make 2023 different more than any resolution or amount of discipline or self-control or willpower can pull off. So the second thing I noticed is when God changes people, it's not progress right away. He recognizes that we have to heal before we can grow. Right? We have to get rid of some of that pain and shame and guilt and regret before we can make progress and move forward. When I was in physical therapy this year, I hurt my knee and I had to go to physical therapy, and I wanted to go in and like start the exercises and make progress and get stronger and go back. And the first week of physical therapy is just literally going like this for like 10 times a day because the knee has to heal before you can grow. And I remember my therapist telling me, when you do these exercises at home, if the knee really starts to hurt, stop, take a few days off, and then start the exercises again. And that was so frustrating because I wanted to make progress. But you have to heal before you can grow. That's how our bodies work. That's how our hearts work. And that's how it worked for Jacob. Before he could move into this new identity, before he could start to grow and make progress, he had to heal from all the things that had happened in his past. The first thing that he had to do was reconcile with his brother. He sent him all these gifts, and his brother comes up, and he's like, here's all these gifts. I'm so sorry. I apologize for everything that I've done. I'm not going to be that way anymore. And him and his brother have this conversation out in the wilderness. And his brother finally, forgives him and gives him a second chance and accepts that forgiveness and extends forgiveness to him. And it's only then that his brother says, okay, now let's begin the walk home. They couldn't just meet there and walk home. They had to heal before they could move forward. And I think sitting here today, for some of us, the first step in making 2023 different than 2022, it's not going to be starting a new habit. It's not going to be kicking an old habit. It's not going to be trying harder to be better. The first step that could start today is going to be forgiveness. I think if on January 1st, all of us looked back and said, I am going to actually accept and receive forgiveness for the things that I feel guilty about, for the things that I know I did wrong. I'm going to forgive myself. And then also, I am going to go out and extend forgiveness to all that anger that I'm carrying or that bitterness or that hurt. And I'm going to start with a clean slate in 2023. That's going to allow change to happen. Because if we're still carrying the same shame and guilt, then things aren't really going to change. If we're still really angry and hurt and bitter, things probably aren't really going to change. Some of us are going to have to start with forgiveness. We have to heal before we can grow. And I think if your New Year's resolution is to just work on forgiveness and figure that out, and that's the only thing that happens this year, you're going to have a way better 2023 than you did 22 because it's that powerful. So if you start there and end there, it'll still be a great year if that's the one thing that we can pull off. So the third thing I notice is that when God changes people, he's never in a rush. The only people who are in a rush to change are us. Change takes time. There's that saying that, what's the first step to losing 20 pounds? Lose 1 pound. You got to lose 1 pound. That's how it happens. And you never notice the 1 pound. It's when you look back and you've lost 20 pounds that you realize that something happened. And God did not change Jacob in one day. He changed his name in one day in that moment. But when you read the story, there were hundreds of little moments that led up to that. And even after his name was changed, there were 100 other more moments that had to happen before he becomes the Jacob that we now think of when we think about the Bible story and how great he was and how faithful he was and what a great leader he was. That took time. And God was not in a rush with him, and God's not in a rush with us. One of my friends from home, she does this really cool practice. Every night, she's got a little journal by her bed, and before she goes to bed, she just writes down a few of her prayers, like bullet points, like be less anxious, try to be a more attentive wife, try and focus more at work, whatever, boom, 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 just writes down a few bullet points every night, closes the journal. She writes down those prayers. So what she got to do at the end of the year is she went back through that whole journal with a little highlighter, and she ticked off all the prayers that she's realized God had answered or the change that had happened. And she looked at some, and she's like, gosh, I was praying for like months that I would be less anxious, and I just felt like it wasn't happening. But now, at the end of the year, I look back and, oh my gosh, I was praying that in February, and God did change me. I'm less anxious. That did happen. Or she even went back and some of them weren't answered. Maybe I'm praying for this opportunity. She's like, that didn't happen. But now that it's months later at the end of the year, I've realized that no actually was in my best interest. So God did answer it, not the way I wanted, but it's still worth a highlight. So she got to go back and see all these things, and she's like, all those times when I thought God wasn't listening and God wasn't working, I was just being impatient. All those times when I thought nothing was happening, that I wasn't changing, look where I am now. It didn't happen in a day, though. It happened in a year. And she got to go back and look at all of that. Some of us, we just live so much in the moment. And 2 Peter tells us, I think this is a great reminder, that the Lord isn't being slow about his promise, as some people think, being us. Gosh, I prayed about this, and it's 2 weeks later, and nothing happened. It says, God's not being slow. He's being patient for your sake. It's for our sake. And I think if we had a list of those things, a lot of times our memory's too short to look back like that. But for her to have it written down and go back a year ago in January and highlight all those prayers that she thought had gone unheard and unanswered, heading into this year, she's so much more aware of how God is changing her and acting in her life. I think this year, if we be patient with God and if we be patient with ourselves, we're going to experience a lot more change than, it didn't happen in a few days, so I'm giving up. That's usually not how God works. And then this is the fourth thing, and probably the most important thing I realized looking at all these name change stories in the Bible. When we set a goal for New Year's or a goal any time of the year, it's usually some sort of goal to improve ourselves so that we can impress other people. We want to change our appearance, or we want to do something really cool, or we want to accomplish something. And a lot of times it's to be more impressive. And every time God changed someone, he always mentioned how it was not just for them, it was so they could go and have an impact on others. So when he changed Jacob, he didn't say, you're going to be a new man so that you can be happier. He said, you're going to be a new man because I have a purpose for you, and you're going to go out and you're going to lead people, and that's important. When he changed Abraham, he didn't just say, I'm going to give you what you want because you deserve it. He said, I'm going to make you a father of all these nations, and you're going to be in covenant with me, and that's important. Every time God changed someone, it was also so that they could go and have an impact on others. So heading into 2023, I'm in a new decade. So a month ago, I turned 30. I'm very old now. I know that some of you are older, like 40. But I felt really old when I turned 30. There's something about when you hit that 0 birthday and the decade turns that everything feels different. And I remember turning 30, I've reflected on it a lot and thinking about how things have changed since I was 20. And I think one of the major things that's changed is when I was 20, my goals in life were just to travel to cool places and do cool things and have fun. And I said, if I get to do that, then I will have a fulfilling life. And that was my goal, and that's what I spent my time and money on. And now thinking about my life as 30, I have no plans to travel, really. I stay pretty close to home, and I think about all those things, and I realize, okay, traveling is cool, it's fun. I do hope I get to do that, but that is not going to make life fulfilling, doing all those things. And more than that, I think the reason 20-year-old Leandra wanted to do them so bad is because it was impressive and people thought it was cool, and my Instagram was so awesome back then of all these places that I was. That's what was motivating me. And I was thinking about being 30, and I was thinking about a new year, and I was like, you know what, this year, I just want to do stuff that matters. Going on a trip is fun, but it doesn't matter that much in the scheme of things. When God changes people so they can impact people, that's what I want to do. So at the beginning of this year, I have no flights booked. I have no plans to go really do anything, maybe go visit our parents. But as Craig was just talking about those beds, I was like, you know what, though? In 2 weeks, I'm going to go build beds and help deliver them to a kid who's never had a bed before. That matters. I'd rather do stuff like that. I think that's a more fulfilling life. I think that's more important. Heading into this year, I'm like, I've just been praying and thinking, God, just give me opportunities to do stuff that matter. That matter to other people, that matter to you. Help keep me from getting distracted on all these things that don't matter, that I tend to care about a lot. And then you step back and you're like, it doesn't matter. I just want to do the stuff that matters. I hope at this time next year, I can get up here and say, you know what? I helped, I was a small part of all these kids getting beds. I was a small part of someone getting to know Jesus. I was a small part of hungry people getting fed and hurt people finding comfort and lonely people having friends. I just want to look back and say, I got to do some stuff that matters. That's what I want to do looking into 2023. So let's go to God and let's pray. God, as we sit here on the first day of a new year, we know that the flip of a calendar does not magically change us, but we tend to be thinking about all the things we want to be different, the things in ourselves that we want to be new, the things we want to change, the new experience we want to have. And God, help remind us that you do change us. You do make us new. We do not have to be the same. Our life does not have to be the same. Things do not have to be the same. And God, remind us that it's not going to happen through us trying really hard. It's going to happen through you. I pray that as we leave here, God, you give us dreams of important things, of good things, that you give us opportunities to serve people, to change people, to love people, to tell people about you. God, we want 2023 to be a year of impact, of doing things that matter, and keep us from getting distracted by comparison or jealousy or anger. God, help us let go of the shame and the guilt and the regret and bitterness and all those things that are getting in the way of us doing the things that matter. God, we are so grateful for all the good things that happened in 2022. There were new births and new opportunities and new skills and new experiences. And God, keep us from just thinking short term. Help us think back over a year and a lifetime of all the amazing things that you've done in our life. And as we look into 2023, God, we know that you will continue to be with us. It's a new year, and we hope that some things about us are new, but that you are always the same. You are going to continue doing what you always do. You're going to continue to be faithful and keep your promises and love us and be with us. God, help us just grow closer, more than anything, to just grow closer to you this year. And if that's all that happens, God, we will be grateful. And now we join together and pray the prayer that your Son Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
All right, well, I want to thank Leandra for her message, and even if this pulpit was heavier today, your message was heavy lifting. So we are so glad that you were with us this morning, that you joined us, and we cannot wait to see you, to have you join us again on the 8th as we dive into our sermon series, As It Is in Heaven. As you go forward today into your whole new life, I want to invite you, as Leandra has encouraged us today, to not go to God and say, God, this is who I want to be, this is how I want to change today, this year, but instead to go to God and say, God, what do you want to do in my life this year? How do you want to change me? And that we have the courage, the willingness to invite him to start that work starting today. So I invite you to go forward with that courage, with that openness, into the anticipation of him bringing us closer to him and closer to the person that he dreams and desires for us to be. Amen.